The Eternal Pact. Why the richest man in Kano never sleeps under a roof. Imagine possessing all the gold in Kano, yet being forbidden from ever sleeping beneath a roof. That was the story people told in hushed tones, the kind that made children draw closer to lantern light and elders lower their voices. It sounded like a warning disguised as a legend, but for Al-Hassan, it was not a story. It was his life. Every billion he earned stripped away another layer of comfort. Every new building he owned became another place he could never truly enter after sunset. His empire stretched across the city. Markets, warehouses, luxury hotels, transport lines, but when darkness fell, he had no place among them. Instead, the richest man in Kano lay on a woven mat under the vast, indifferent sky. And the stars, they watched him. If you arrived in Kano at dawn, you would see something that made no sense. Outside a towering mansion with marble pillars and gold-lined gates, surrounded by armed guards and surveillance cameras, lay a simple mat on bare earth. And on it, wrapped in a thin cloth, was Al-Hassan. His eyes would be open, always open. Not because he didn't want to sleep, but because sleep for him came like a thief. Light, restless, uncertain. The slightest shift of wind, the sound of a passing motorcycle, the cry of a night bird, everything woke him. Above him stood empty rooms with silk sheets untouched. Below him, the ground that had become both his prison and his punishment. People who passed by pretended not to look, but everyone looked, because no one could understand how a man could own everything, yet belong nowhere. It began, as all dangerous things do, with a need. Long before he became the wealthiest man in Kano, Al-Hassan was just another trader in the Kurumi market. He dealt in grains, millet, rice, maize, buying low, selling just enough to survive. But survival was not enough. He watched other men rise, faster, richer, bolder. Men who started after him and surpassed him. Men whose names carried weight, while his was barely remembered. And deep inside him, something began to grow. Not hunger, not ambition, something darker. A desperation that whispered, there must be another way. Kano's markets are alive in ways outsiders rarely understand. They breathe, they listen, they remember. Between the shout of traders and the clatter of goods, there are older currents, currents that carry secrets passed down through generations, deals that are not written, agreements that are never spoken aloud. It was in one of those quiet corners, behind the noise and color, that Al-Hassan first heard the name. Not a man's name, something older. Something people referred to only as the keeper of the open sky. At first, he laughed it off, a story to scare greedy men, a myth created to explain sudden wealth or sudden ruin. But the idea stayed with him, and like all dangerous ideas, it returned. The man who introduced him to the ritual had no fixed place in the market. Some days he sold herbs, other days, nothing at all. His eyes were what people remembered, too calm, too knowing, as if he saw things others did not. "You want wealth?" the man said one evening without greeting. Al-Hassan froze. "I want success," he replied carefully. The man smiled. "You want more than success. You want dominance." There was no point denying it. "What is the price?" Al-Hassan asked. The man's face faded. He said, "It depends. How much comfort are you willing to lose?" The ritual was not what Al-Hassan expected. There were no crowds, no chanting, no spectacle. Only a barren stretch of land outside the city. And the sky. Always the sky. "You must understand this," the man said. "Wealth flows where there is space. To receive everything, you must give up something fundamental." "What?" Al-Hassan asked. "Shelter." The word seemed too simple, too small, but the man continued. "You will own buildings you cannot inhabit. You will build homes you cannot sleep in. From the moment the sun sets, you must remain under the open sky. No roof, no covering, no walls enclosing you." Al-Hassan frowned. "That is all?" The man stepped closer. "If you break this rule even once, the wealth will not leave you." Al-Hassan felt relief. "That is good." The man shook his head slowly. "It will consume you instead." The ritual ended with a simple act. Al-Hassan lay on the ground and swore. Not to a man, not to a god he knew, but to something that lived in the vastness above. The stars seemed brighter that night, too bright, as if they had come closer, as if they were listening. The next morning, everything changed. Deals that were impossible suddenly became effortless. Suppliers offered him credit without hesitation. Opportunities appeared as if summoned. Within months, his small grain business expanded into logistics. Within a year, he owned warehouses. Within 2 years, his name carried power. People called it luck, then genius, then destiny. But Al-Hassan knew the truth. Every coin, every contract, every success was part of the pact. At first, it felt like nothing. Sleeping outside? It was common enough in the dry season. Many did it. But then came the rains. The first storm struck without warning. The sky split open and water fell like a punishment. Al-Hassan stood outside his own mansion, soaked to the bone, while his guards watched helplessly from under shelter. "Sir, please," one begged, "just for tonight." "No," Al-Hassan said, because something inside him knew. The pact was watching. The years passed and the wealth grew. So did the cost. Harmattan winds cut through his skin like blades. Mosquitoes fed on him without mercy. Cold nights stole his rest. And sleep became something fragile and incomplete. There is a cruel logic to the pact. The richer Al-Hassan became, the more restrictive it felt. Every new building he acquired expanded his empire and shrank his freedom. Luxury hotels he could not stay in, private estates he could not enter after sunset. Even his own family home became a place he had to leave every evening. His children would watch from the windows as he spread his mat outside. His wife stopped asking questions because some answers were worse than silence. By 2026, Al-Hassan's wealth had reached unimaginable levels. He influenced markets, controlled supply chains, funded projects across northern Nigeria. But at night, none of that mattered. Because at night, he was alone. No walls, no doors, no protection beyond what he could see. And what he could see was not always reassuring. Sometimes he felt it, a presence. Not human, not visible, but there, watching him, the way he had watched the stars. Al-Hassan did not move, because deep inside him, a terrible realization began to form. The pact was not just taking from him, it was coming closer. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share before I drop part 2. Make sure you engage now so you don't miss the next chapter of this powerful African folktale. Trust me, you don't want to be late for what's coming next. Drop your location in the comments, share this with someone who loves great stories, and turn on notifications for part 2. Part 2 is coming soon. Are you ready?